What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video, and today I want to talk to you guys about Destiny 2. Now, if you guys got a chance to listen to BK's Bullets, the podcast my good friend Brett and I do, you know a lot of my personal opinions on the game. And if you haven't had a chance to check out that podcast, I'm going to put a link in the description box below. I think it's a good one. I think you're going to enjoy it. Brett and I really deep dive a lot of our concerns with Destiny 2 and our thoughts on it and that sort of thing. I was browsing the internet today, as I do frequently, and I stumbled across a really good post by Slayerage. Now, if you don't know who Slayerage is, he's definitely one of the top players in PvE. And he put together a very good job of explaining his criticisms on the game. And I wanted to read these to you. I'm not going to read them verbatim because it's going to take too long. It's a very long post, but he does a really good job of breaking down a lot of things in a way that I think a lot of people don't talk about the game. And I think these criticisms are really valid. And, you know, over this last week I had of my staycation, playing through my backlog as opposed to Destiny 2, I think really does show, in my opinion, kind of where I rank that game in value. And it's unfortunate because it really had a lot of promise and hope to it, and there were a lot of good fixes that were made. However, I'm going to read some of these, and I think you may feel the way I do after these posts. Specifically on power level, Destiny 1 made it possible to underlevel but not to overlevel, which makes you feel like your character never gets more powerful. You get less weak but never really stronger. You don't gain health, you don't deal more damage. Power level really doesn't do much of anything. However, power level isn't a requirement for using new weaponry, so gear strength and power level are not related. You can get to the max level in the game now doing nothing but public events. You don't need 305, which is the current high level, for anything in particular. And we know that Prestige coming out next week is going to be 300, which isn't even the highest level. To summarize, you can get 305 from anything, you don't need it for anything, and it doesn't do anything. It's too easy to level, yet simultaneously not worth it to try anyway. It's clumsily tacked onto the game, and that is a problem. Now, that is something I really do agree with. You know, in other games and other RPGs, when you do level up your character, you get new skills, you get new perks, you hit harder. It makes content easier, especially the early level content. It makes it easier. And if you guys know, if you played World of Warcraft, that's kind of where I learned a lot about this system. How easy it is to pull a character through, or power level. You guys have probably heard that term before. Power level a character through easier content where you can solo the entire dungeon by yourself, as where earlier you would need a team because the enemies were, at a harder level than you, and they're not anymore. Yes, there are new skills that you unlock in Destiny with your skill points. You have to associate them, which give you different abilities, but they aren't really groundbreaking in terms of opening up new combat that wasn't previously open before. It's not like you needed a super to beat a certain type of enemy. It's just something cool and tacked on, and I do have to really agree with that. And I think when you think about it in terms of it doesn't make you stronger, it makes you less weak, I think it really does kind of show that the whole leveling system is still not really there. Specific about loot. Good God, I want to cry for the loot. The loot pool was made shallow to the extent of maybe 100 legendary guns in Destiny 1 could have literally 182,000 variants on that same gun. This would probably be excusable if it felt like each gun was a work of art, but a handful of drops from Destiny 1 were taken at random and chosen to be fixed on a Destiny 2 roll. Why is Nameless Midnight seen as a top tier by sole virtue of having explosive rounds? Or more importantly, why is loot so wimpy that seeing Nameless Midnight isn't wrong? By the way, I like Nameless Midnight. Basically, we got a lot of mediocre rolls fixed as our version without any chance to get anything better. The loot in Destiny 2 feels watered down so much that I'm starting to think it might just be water. Amassing loot and dismantling it felt like I was just making a mess in my inventory for the satisfaction of cleaning it up. I had not once in years of my experience with Destiny had such a strong feeling that I had wasted my time. Now, I have to agree with them on the loot. One of the joys of an RPG is customizing your character, making your character different than every other character in the game. And re-rolling and grinding, unfortunately, is a necessary evil to that. Because to me, Third Eye and explosive rounds was the killer combination in my scout rifle in Destiny 1 because I always aim with iron sights and I love explosive rounds, especially, you know, when you have enemies clumped up together, you get that splash damage. It's really, really nice to have. But maybe that wasn't your preferred way of getting a perfect roll, what you thought a perfect roll was. So they implemented a system where you could reroll and get a chance. And it took me a very long time to get the combination that I wanted, but it was such a great satisfaction when I did get it. Yes, there was some unnecessary grinding, and I think the requirements to make a weapon rerollable were a little bit on the steep side because I'd reroll hundreds and hundreds of times before I got the perfect combination, but it felt good to me, and that was my perfect weapon. When you guys, being Destiny here, the Bungie, the creators of Destiny, when you guys determine what a perfect roll is, you really do limit what players can and can't get. And you're going to naturally have weapons like Nameless Midnight, which are going to rise to the top. And by Destiny 1 standards, that's not really like the best gun in the game. You could have had better things. And you could have had, like, again, me going back to Third Eye, something that I found really useful that now I don't necessarily get in a gun that has explosive rounds because Destiny felt that wasn't a perfect way of doing it. And that is frustrating. And when you take that level of customization away from a player, you weaken the R in RPG, obviously being role, you know, the role-playing element of it. On endgame, okay, Destiny 2 seems to have horrible identity crisis that has tarnished RPG/MMO-like elements and honestly has ruined them. I like the game and I'm glad I played it, but those aspects of my enjoyment in Destiny 1 were not reignited during Destiny 2. Replayability being crippled into nothingness has utterly destroyed the social aspect of the game. There's no doubt that the game has plenty of playability and that it is fun to play, but it cannot be treated as a hobby in its current state. I can't blame my friends for not playing because the game feels intended to be beaten and moved on from. Bear in mind, I'm one of the guys that plays too much, and so do my friends. Balance has taken a lot of the fun out of loot and the Crucible without adding anything meaningful. Those who like it this way are almost certainly rivaled by numbers who don't, because there's no question that the change is a matter of taste purely, and having less cool PvE weapons is undoubtedly less fun. That is really true. That was something that I noticed in this particular game, in Destiny 2. I found myself playing less and less as time went on, and I found that once I beat it, it was a game like a lot of other games that I play and put on the shelf. I loved Horizon Zero Dawn. I platinumed it. I loved it. But ever since I got that platinum, I have no reason to go back and play. I loved Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite Story Mode. I never need to see it again. And in a very similar way, Destiny 2 has done that to me. It has made me play it, I beat it, I'm done with it. Even Diablo, which had a very linear, basic story, Diablo 3 in particular, very, very basic linear story, still had a lot of replayability because you were constantly in that weapon grind mode of trying to get better weapons, of better rerolls, to level up your character, to beat rifts faster, to get better rewards. That was the hook. The hook in Destiny 2 is really, we're going to give you guys tons and tons of guns, tons and tons of light level very early on in the game, and then you're going to go off and do the same things again, but grinding it out isn't really going to give you much of anything. Yes, you will get different guns that you didn't get before. You can definitely go out and be an exotic collector and collect every single gun, but it's a very quick thing to look online, look at the different weapons that are out there and say, well, this is the one I want. And when you find it, it's kind of done, knowing that you can't customize it. And he does go on to talk about more about re-rolling, but I've already kind of addressed that. So I think he did a really good job of his criticisms, and I do mirror a lot of them. And by no means is Destiny 2 a bad game. I paid $60 for it. I didn't get the collector edition. I didn't get any of the special digital loot or anything like that. And I feel that I did get my $60 worth, and I'm happy that I got to play it. I think it gets so much attention because Destiny 1 was such a phenomenal experience, and it was something that was so different and so unique that you really just, despite the fact that it had its flaws, it was such a novel concept for its time. And the gunplay felt so good that it was just worth playing and reinvesting in. As for Destiny 2 now, it's kind of been out for a couple weeks, and I'm already looking on my shelf for the next game to play, and I've already found it, and I'm going to be jumping into Final Fantasy 15, clearing out my backlog, because Destiny 2 doesn't appeal to me. The fact that Iron Banner doesn't have anything to do with power level doesn't appeal to me. The fact that Dead Orbit won and I got that really sweet or the scout rifle for $1,000, I tried it. It was fun, but it wasn't something that's making me come back. And I feel that if anything to take away from my rant, which is going on almost 11 minutes by the time I'm done here, is that power levels and light levels and gear and all that stuff doesn't really matter if you don't have an engaging hook. And there's got to be something that makes you want to come back. Whether it is weapon reforging, whether it is story, whether it is time-based, whether it is alternate endings, whatever you feel it is, there's got to be a hook that makes you come back. And in a world of online persistent games, like a PUBG or a Heroes of the Storm, where every match is different and unique and fun, you look at Destiny and you got to ask yourself, are we really getting that same level of satisfaction? And if we're not, then I think you're going to be in the same camp with me and say, hey, Bungie, thanks for the great experience, but it's going to go on my shelf, and maybe I'll put the game back in at some point, but not really feeling it right now. So tell me if I'm in the minority here. Comment below. Tell me if I'm really on board with this or completely opposite. I did plagiarize a lot of what this guy was saying. I'll post a link to his words. You can read them below. Don't take my word for it, but I think that it's important that regardless of what you think, don't blindly hate this video because I'm tarnishing Destiny's glorious reputation. As I said before, I think it is a good game, but I think it's a game that once you beat, there's really nothing left to do. So, as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Get out there, play some backlog games, and until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.